Welcome to Feminine Power Time. Turn off the chatter and tune in to what matters. This is Christina Rilo, your host, and I am welcoming you to the place where we come together to reimagine the way we and the world work by marrying together wisdom, well-being, and leadership. Today we are going to dive into, open up a conversation, an episode here, number 267, that I titled Becoming Something New. And this will be in a series that I'm titling Next Phase on Purpose. Next Phase on Purpose is it's the language that I use to describe what we do as co-creators when we embrace that we are ever evolving humans on our path, on our purpose, in our presence, in our impact in the world by being who we are, by giving our gifts to the world, by designing our lives, by using our voices, and just by our everyday choices. And we come to these places in our own lives, and we come to these places also in our family systems, in our organizational systems, and in our cultural systems. And right now, we are in a big becoming something new transition on all of those levels. Usually you'll get one or maybe two that are happening, but right now we're cycling through many of those, right? So I'm imagining you, like me, and pretty much every person I know, if you're awake and you're aware and you're not gripping onto fear or onto the shore and don't want to let go, although I do have days about that, you are becoming something new. You can feel it in your cells. You can feel it in your mind. You can feel it in your body, even if you don't have language for it. It's like those imaginal cells that they talk about when they talk about the caterpillar going into the butterfly, that these imaginal cells we're born with them. And I like to say it's kind of like a time capsule where there are pieces within, whether it's our DNA, our imaginal cells, our cosmicness, our physicalness, our soulness, whatever it is, that are timed to go off at different times in our lives. And if we're watching and we're tuned in, what happens is that timing is tuned to the natural timing. So, for example, what that might mean is that whatever year you were born, that was the time that the universe, and you said, okay, I'm dropping in this decade at this time when the stars were where they were and the planets were where they were, and whether you believe in astrology or not, that's a real thing. The stars and the planets are all in places when we're born. And it does imprint us at some certain way. And I've looked at enough people's astrological charts to know that that is a real thing, and to look at many other things from our human design to the system of the gene keys. And when they all align, that tells me that there is some deep wisdom here. And, it's no accident, sidebar here, that the kind of modern world poo-poos and shoo-shoos or superficializes things like astrology and anything that's related to your birth, because how could that be? As if it's your fate. And of course they do that, because can you imagine a world, I imagine this world, where children were born and their parents had ways to understand them, to know how to parent them based on who they were, because every child is different, based on their human design, based on their astrological makeup, based on what the system of the gene keys. They're all the same. They're connected to deep wisdom things. I imagine that world. Or college kids, that as we're making our decisions about our career, that those are things that we just know about ourselves, so that it helps us make good decisions. Because if that was true, we couldn't be bamboozled. We couldn't get hooked up to the madness matrix and what I like to call the escalator to death, where we feel like we have to rely on something external to keep us safe, to make sure we have enough, to make us safe, to make us safe, to make us safe. And when it's important to have security, but when our structures that were meant to create security, whether they're internal structures, they're our family structures, they're the structures of the organizations we work in, or they're how we organize as a society, no longer create security, but actually create sabotage and harm and distortions and disease and all of those things, it's time to shift. And you don't want to wait until the big shit goes down before you're like, my imaginal selves have been speaking to me for a while. And I want to tune in and listen. And that's why we're here at Feminine Power Time, here in our 9th year. The original, for those of you who haven't been around since the beginning, the original way that this downloaded to me was it was Feminine Power Time. Turn off the chatter and tune into what matters. And so as we're ending our 9th season and we're going to be opening up to the 10th season, the guidance I've been given is to really return to the original intention, but at an elevated next level. And that's kind of how it is for you and I. We had an original intention, original design dropping here into this planet, both for what we're here to give. So you have gifts, you have essence that you are here to give to this world in all different ways. Whether or not anyone ever sees it on social media is completely irrelevant. It is about how you show up in your family system, your relationships, where you live as in place, where you work, what place you give in your vocation, your energy to. And those are our original intentions. We don't want to lose those as we become something new. But there's parts of those, and we're going to get into this today, that we do need to release. We do need to let go. I mean, actually, in evolution, there are parts where we, like animals, lose like parts of their bodies. Like, cats don't have thumbs anymore. And some cats do. I just was at Pottery, you all, and a woman showed me, she was making a cat pottery piece, and she showed me a cat with thumbs. I was like, wow, that's super cool. But most cats don't have thumbs. And so it's like there are these pieces of us that we don't need anymore. And so that could be in your own, being and your own patterns and how you see the world. It could be in how you've worked and the creations you've made. It could be in relationship. There's like so many places. And so this is also happening in our systems, meaning what we're looking at and seeing around is really in so many ways, like the way I see it is like, so it's so evident that it's time for a shift. And I'm gonna share with you here a piece of wisdom that really that was shared with me by a friend of mine who's an elder. He has been in the work world, industry world for a long time. He calls it the industry world, and he also is an amazing soul who. I just am really grateful for him in my life. And we were having a talk, a wise being talk, a couple of weeks ago, and he shared this with me. And it's a piece of Andean wisdom that I'm going to kind of launch us into today, and into this series, and then also into a lot of things that I'm going on in my next elevation, in my next evolution. But for today, just as I lay out this before I tune us into this, what today's episode and what this series is really about is looking about, first of all, today becoming something new. How is that happening for you? Where is that happening for you? And allowing us to slow down enough to really tune into some inquiries that I'm going to give you today that you're not just going to get immediate answers for, but my hope is you get some wisdom and insight for, and then you work with these over the next several months. These are some of the inquiries that I work with people when I do my next phase on purpose, career, life, leadership impact work with people. So I have 3 of these that are they're all wisdom-based inquiries. And so just for those of you that are new here, the difference between wisdom and knowledge. Knowledge is like you can read a book and now you know something important, helpful, but it only works on the intellectual level. Wisdom works on all 4 levels: mind, body, heart, and spirit. It's the intuition, it's the intellect, it's insight from the bigger consciousness, and it is instinctual. And so when we make an inquiry into the space, and why we give you these inquiries here at Feminine Power Time, and we will continue to do that, is so that you can take them and contemplate with them. So you can take them and bring them into your life and be in co-creation with them. So that when things show up in your field, you're like, oh, that was the inquiry Christine put into the field. This is how that's related. Because when we choose to elevate, we choose to evolve. When you say yes, to becoming something new, to allowing your natural design to unfold from the inside out, to be informed by external things, people, places, things going on, but to be driven and guided by your internal wisdom and your connection to, some call it the cosmic will, I like to call it the divine will, and not that we're like subservient to the divine, but that we are in fact the divine. So these codes are meant to reveal themselves, but if you're not listening, if you're in a fear frequency or a shadow frequency, you won't hear them, or they'll be distorted. If you're constantly being shocked by the outside world and all of the discombobulation and chaos that's going on a daily basis, you won't be able to hear these. So it's not about disconnecting from what's going on systemically, because you are, my dear, we are micros of the macro. And this is a conversation I'm having with every single person that I work with, whether they're looking at their organization and we're like, oh, this is a micro of the bigger macro, but this is also a macro, and I'm inside the macro, or their family systems. This is an example of what's happening at the macro, but this is happening to me in my family system. Or I've been talking to several people recently, and we'll talk more about this in the podcast to come in this series, about their communities and literally disruptors coming in and fragmenting communities that have been really traditionally safe and sacred. And what's that about? And they were like, oh, I see how the macro is happening here on the micro, and then what's my part in this community? And it's been amazing to watch people step into their personal leadership and their part within these communities. So more on that next time. For this time, I want you really to pull the energy into yourself and this knowingness that I am becoming something new. That there is, whether you use the butterfly who's unfurling her wings of light, or you use the dragonfly as a metaphor, who crawls out of the subconscious where it's in the water and it's just not seeing the bigger thing because it's only in the water. It can't fly. It's just nymph, and so it doesn't have its wings, who decides to crawl up that reed, and then it gets up there and it drops its exoskeleton. And then its wings pop out, and then the water remains on it while it dries before it flies. While it dries before it flies. And that's where we're at right now. Many of us are dropping exoskeletons. Currently, this is being taped in the year of the snake. Snakes shed their skin, but I always feel like if we're smart, if we're wise, we use the superpower of catalyze to every year shed skin, so that when there's a big shedding like we're all going through right now, it's not so painful. It's kind of like getting dental work. If you don't shed, don't get your teeth cleaned on a yearly by every 6 month basis, and you wait years and years, you get a lot of plaque buildup, a lot more painful. So the people who are having the hardest time right now are the people who haven't been catalyzing and shifting and elevating. And so they are really grabbed onto fear, or they're deregulating. And even those of us that have been shedding, because this is really an exoskeleton kind of situation, there's a lot of struggle. And as one of my favorite people in the world who's no longer with us in body, Jen O'Donohue, says, when you're in a threshold crossing, which we all are, it's a dangerous time. And I always say that from a phoenix perspective, you can try and fly back, but then you get burned up because you get caught in the fire, you get lost, or you stagnate and you stop because you're just afraid, and then you burn up and basically die as the phoenix, and you don't go to the next level. Or you keep flying. You keep flapping those wings of light that have dross or exoskeleton or goop on it or whatever, and you know that light is a light of radiance. That's the light of grace, and it's guiding us through. So the inquiries that I'm going to give to you and the frames here are really this invitation to, as we go through these next couple months, and maybe even years, it's that piece of drying before flying. And not making ourselves have to have the answer so we can know exactly what to do, but to be in co-creation with our deeper soul print, with what's going, with the cosmos, with the universe, and then allow it to reveal itself. But we have to be in active connection. So that is what this is all about. All right. And I'll tell you why. So we're going to slow down, move us into the realm of our breath. So just taking a breath into your belly and centering your physical body through your breath in your belly. When we have a soft belly that allows intuition to come in and insight. Taking another breath and centering in your heart into the energy of love. Pure love. It can be any kind of love: compassion, gratitude, appreciation, acceptance, empowerment, courage, or just plain love. And then breathing into your mind and tuning into the frequency of stillness. The beautiful pond of water or a lake that is clear and smells good and is also has equanimity in it, to be here now. And then breathe into your spirit, just like the radiant body around you, sometimes called your aura, also called your magnetic field. It's a real thing. And breathe into that spirit, feeling your connection. Feeling your connection to your spirit, feeling your connection to whatever the bigger spirit is that connects us all for you. And also just breathing into that connection in your spirit of other beings on the planet who do believe what our friend Jimi Hendrix said many, many decades ago: when the love of power becomes the power of love, this world will know peace. And who are committed to every day living that in our lives. And also abiding by one of the most beautiful yogic principles I know, which is to do no harm. Do our best to do no harm. And if we do harm, to go back and create harmony in it. More on that next time. To be agents of instruments of harmony on the planet. A little bit like we talked with Pele last podcast, if you missed that. So here's the piece of wisdom that's going to frame our whole series and really going to frame the whole for many moons to come. It's a piece of wisdom that I've been living by, I think mostly my whole life. But when I decided to create the work around self-love, and I really actively, with pure intention, knew my purpose and was dialed into it, and it wasn't just about achieving the next rung, but it was really conscious about, this is what I'm here to help co-create. I did this, and I just did it intuitively. And so when my friend Peter told me about this, I was like, oh my God, that's total wisdom. That's what I've been doing for 20 years. Yes, yes, yes. So I want to thank Marcela Lobos, who Peter learned this from through the Andean Wisdom. And I would invite you to close your eyes. I'm going to say this 3 times. And then we'll dive into our 3 inquiries here. If we don't actively dream our dream, we are being dreamt. If you don't actively dream your dream, you are being dreamt. If we don't actively dream our dream, if you and I don't actually dream our dream, if we are not educated and prepared to be able to dream our dream and teach our children how to dream actively their dream, we are being dreamt. And take a breath and just let that land in. I encourage you, I'll put that in the show notes, but I encourage you to write that down. I have it on my desk. And just bring that into your consciousness and start to look around. We'll get into this a little bit more next episode about what dreams you're seeing are being dreamt in this world that you don't like. You don't like it at all. And how disempowering it could be if we don't know that we can actively dream our dream too. And that's part of the dangerousness of a threshold crossing, is that interference can come in. That's a real thing. Interference can come in because it feels the power of love rising. It feels the power of love rising. It feels the power of love rising. And when there is love and the world will know peace, it is very challenging to control humans and to keep humans so distracted and so at the shadow consciousness that they don't see what's actually happening. So just by us having this conversation today, this is about you empowering yourself to dream actively your dream. And if you've already done that once before, you know what I'm talking about. Well, fabulous. You do it again. Here we go. If you're like, I don't know what this lady is talking about, but I'm game, awesome. All that's required is being receptive. I didn't know what I didn't know when I was in grad school in Chicago at the age of 30, and my first therapist, or actually my only therapist, who was a beautiful shamanic man as well, said he was going to send energy towards me, and I should close my eyes and the energy would be green. I was like, energy? What are you talking about? You mean like from the electrical socket? Like I didn't know what I didn't know because I was in the water. And he sent that energy to me and I felt it and it came straight at me and then it stopped right before my heart and it went around me. And I remember feeling it. I remember seeing it. I had never had that experience before. And I was like, oh shit, my heart is protected. And I have built a protective wall around my heart for a good reason. But then that began the practice of dismantling that protection and creating and strengthening a different kind of protection that's based in grace and love and wisdom and connection. As I say, don't be a dummy pants and just walk around without any boundaries. That's just as bad as having protection all around your heart. But it's about returning to wholeness that we've had. And part of what we see in the world right now, you all, is a reflection of the wholeness we don't embody in ourselves because we grow up in a culture that hasn't been taught this for thousands of years. And I imagine a time in this world where parents are whole within themselves, so then the imprints that their children get come from wholeness. That's what we're up to right now. And for those of you who aren't parents, whatever way you interact in the world, whether it's with 8-year-olds or 88-year-olds, it is never too late to come to wholeness. So your presence, all of our presence matters. The world needs many mothers, and you don't have to be a woman to have mothering, nurturing, protective energy. All right. That was a little bit of the fierce feminine. You know, she comes in from time to time. So that's, I guess, what she wanted to say. All right. Let me take a little sip of my coffee here. I poured it in my mug. It's sapphire blue, and it was given to me by a good friend, Cheryl, who some of you may know. And blue is the color of intuition. So I really want to invite in your intuition to be here with us now. So let's start with the first inquiry, which is a little bit more of it's kind of like a command, but it's not a command from an external source. Okay, so it's not a command from me. It's not a command from even the divine. It is a command from your spirit and your soul, who was like, when you dropped in, it was like, don't forget this. Don't forget this. Do not forget this. And then you know what you did? You forgot it. We all do. And at some point you woke up, you're like, oh yeah, right. Remember who you are. Remember who I am, why I'm here, what I'm here to give, what I'm here to receive, what I'm here to experience. So sometimes we fall asleep and we forget because we're trying to stay safe. We're trying to have what we need to be secure. And that's part of the game that's being played right now. It's like if you look at the things, whether it's a tariff or it's the tax system or it's the way that arbitrage happens, that has made me nuts since I was in grad school and I learned the word, which basically means to take value that isn't creating value. Like it's not really creating value, but people capture that value and then they use it to create more money, which then creates this bigger and bigger dichotomy and differential between those that have and have not. So what we're doing right now is tuning in. So go back to tuning in to that belly, to that heart, to that mind, to that spirit. And here is what your self that incarnated wants you to do right now. Admit what you really want. Admit what you really want. standing here now in this moment, looking forward into this next cycle of your life. Remember, next phase on purpose. What you desire, what you want is not an afterthought. You are not just a resource for your family or your mission or your purpose. You are part of the equation. And if you don't admit what you really want at the get-go, you will create a reality that is not in alignment with your heart and your soul. So it might look good on paper, but it will not feel fulfilling, good, healthy, aligned, all of the things within your body. If you can't admit to yourself, and I dare say, admit to others, this is actually what I really want. And it not from ego. There's a little ego in it, I would say, that's like the healthy part of the ego. That's like, don't diminish yourself. Don't apologize for yourself. Don't damp yourself down. Don't be like, oh, I can't ask for that. And of course, don't go over to where, like we're seeing on the big screen, the emboldened masculine or feminine, this emboldened, I don't give a shit about anybody else. Most of you we don't have to worry about that. What your ego might do is get you attached to the form of what it looks like and the timing. That we don't want to do either. But the essence of what you want, and even the specifics of what you want to some degree, are important to admit. So let's just play this game right now. If it's just you and me, and you were to say, okay, I'm standing here right now in my life, looking around at my work in the world and what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis in my work, what your life design is, the things that you have, the things that you don't, that you really do deeply desire and are actually part of your design. What do you really want for yourself for this next cycle? And I'm going out 20 years here, you all. I've set up the next 20 years. Now, everything I'm sharing with you, I've already done this. I'm still doing it. Like, it's a co-creative process. I've been doing this for years, which is why I'm sharing it with you. You can choose a smaller one if you want. That's okay, because the next cycle is going to be 5 years. The next cycle is 3 years. I like to go out and then I kind of come back. So, or you could just say the next cycle. So let me just walk you through this. We'll just kind of play the game. So you can close your eyes and just feel this in, or you could jot something down, or if you're walking, just let it kind of percolate. So when you look at your work in the world and what you want to give, now remember, I don't believe, you can believe what you want to. I don't believe in retirement. I believe that I have gifts to give, and that as long as I'm working in alignment with what's in alignment for my soul, I don't need to retire. What am I going to do? Sit down and go play canasta, or go get a condo in Florida and stare at the water? No, we're here to be actively engaged, and how you choose to do that is different. So whatever age you are, whether you're 12 or you're 80 or you're 60, this is always a question. Sometimes your work in the world is actually not even doing something, it's within your family system. So for you, what do you really want in the way you give your gifts and the work in the world? What do you really want? What do you really desire? And just tune into it. See if you can feel it. See if you can see it. See if you can open your heart. And we can always feel the difference between ego and essence, because ego feels like you're grasping or controlling. Essence expands your chest. It opens your belly, makes you quiver a little bit even sometimes. Of can I have that? It brings up your inadequacy or self-doubt. That's how you know you're in essence, actually. It's so side note, but when this whole imposter syndrome thing makes me banana pants, because I'm like, can we stop with the imposter syndrome and just be like, you have self-doubt, you're feeling inadequate. You're either stretching yourself or you're externalizing some outside bullshit onto yourself. So if you're expanding and stretching yourself, awesome, let's do it. If you're externalizing outside bullshit. Let's look at that and see where inside of you, which we'll do this next time, that's triggering that inadequacy and that self-doubt. And then cut that, vaporize that, radiate. Instead of radiation, we radiate it with light out of your system. So just name it, even if you have no idea what it looks like, no idea how it happens. I did this in 2016 with Noah. We were up in Mendocino. We had just came back from Los Angeles, ended our nomad kind of excursion, and we got married in Mendocino. And I was not, and you can sometimes tell what you really desire by what's not feeling good. And I was not feeling good. I had just completed my business partnership with Amy, and we had been in that online marketing kind of online program world very early. And it was great when it was Amy and I, because Amy liked the stuff that I didn't like, and I liked the stuff that Amy didn't like, or we just had different gifts. And together we had a really great partnership for the time it was meant to last. And then I'm like, I don't want to do this. What I really desire is I desire to work with leaders who are making systemic change and their teams and be part of elevating the system and having I call it a boutique consultancy where I work with the leaders who really are ready to elevate into their next expression in the world and their influence in the world. Those are my people and their teams. That's what I really want to do, and write books and still do the work with girls and really bring this wisdom to girls and young women so that they don't have to wait till they're 40 and 50 for all of this wisdom. That's what I want to do. And I do that now. And that was how long ago? I don't know how many years ago. It was 9 years ago. And so we'll get to this also as well. It's not like I just popped my wings out and then I flew. I had to release things to do that. I had to do my own internal work to be my own vibration, to be able to be that person who could be that advisor to leaders who are making systemic change. And I did all of those things. And then slowly but surely, little things were happening. And I would say 2018 is when it started to manifest. And then it grew. And then there was interference, pandemic. And so I'm sharing my personal story with you because I had to say that out loud. And there's a number, a dollar amount that's attached to that. That is what we like to call a little more than enough of what I want and need. It's not gazillions of dollars. It's not billions of dollars. It's not hundreds of millions of dollars. It's enough. And we'll get into this later around money, but this is this piece, around money where we're like, well, I want to make this amount of money and da-da-da-da. And you can totally have that. But again, you got to feel into it and then say it. I said my number, and I'm not going to say it to you all here because and it's not that it's I wouldn't want to share it with you all, but I want you to have your own experience. And I've said it to different friends. And I have also, one of the things that I admitted I really wanted is I don't want to be in the business of having to take little amounts of money from people. It's why I've never charged for my podcast or done Patreon or, paid Substack. I'm I don't want $10 a month from people. Keep your $10 and just share, just share. I'd rather have organizations and companies and systems pay for the elevation of their leaders. And they have lots of money and they should support their leaders. And then that supports me. And that was a big part of how I made choices about my business model and what I wanted to do. So then I would be free to serve through the podcast and through the wisdom school and through the work I do with young girls and young women. That I didn't need that. I didn't want that to have to support my livelihood. And that took time. So that's kind of what I'm talking about here. So hopefully that helps. So also admit what you really want in your life design. What do you really how do you want to feel? What do you want your days to look like? What do you want your community to look like? Where do you want to live at? What's the environment that you want to live in? And even if you don't know how that's going to happen, you can name it now. Just admit it. Then you can start to be in co-creation with it. All right, anything else you want to admit you really want? This could be partnership. Maybe you're single and you want partnership. Maybe you're in a relationship and you want to be partnership, but you know you want partnership. Maybe you really want to have only healthy friendships. Say it. Write it down. Don't feel guilty for anything it is you want and desire. And then be in relationship to it and start to feel, when am I grasping or contracting? That's ego. Or when am I expanding and allowing and feeling that sensitivity? That's your soul. All right. Apparently, I'm a little fiery, you all, about this. So I hope it didn't feel like I was yelling at you. Sometimes the fierceness in mine comes out, which is really about advocacy. And in season 10, we're gonna explore the 8 feminine leadership archetypes, one of which is advocate. And one of the powers of the advocate is she's very embodied in her self-empowerment. And one of her stands is, I will let you feel my power until you can find your own. And so I'm not saying I'm more powerful than you. I'm not saying that at all. I think that I just want to be clear. And there is this way that this is part of my life design. If you look at my gene keys, if you look at my astrology, if you look at my human design, all of it is really about, many things, is about moving out of superficiality into self-assuredness and presence, and moving out of the shadow of desire and want and success that is at what's cultural defines, to follow and align with light and what is really true in my design. So I've had lots and lots of a lifetime of practice with this. And so that energy that you're feeling is my advocate to allow you to feel that within yourself. And that even if you've done this before, where we started at, it's so intense because it's happening at so many levels. Even the most powerful women I know have gotten shaken up in their boots. And even I've had bouts of inadequacy, and I'm like, oh my God, what? I'm not used to that. I'm like, oh, shadow frequency, there it is, because I'm stretching and I'm expanding into places that I don't have as much control, and there's more vulnerability, and it's bringing up not just fear from this lifetime, but actually fears from many lifetimes in which my full power express was not so kindly met by the system, shall we say. But this is a different lifetime. So, but more on that next time. So I just wanted to be clear about that. So I don't know, because I can't listen to myself right now because I'm talking to all of you. I watch these little bars on my screen, tells me how much my voice goes up. But that is one of the powers of the advocate. And in any way, this podcast and I can be, Feminine Power Time can be an advocate for you in these times, as well as an oasis to tune in to that power. That's where we're going to go in our 10th season, is power and presence and personal sustainability, and the triangle of those, so that you can come here and turn off the chatter and tune into what matters. All right. Take a little breath there, my friend. All right, let's go to the second one. So this is the inquiry, and I'm going to give you the inquiry, and then I'll explain it. We'll kind of tune into it. Where will I plant my field in this next phase, this next cycle? Where will I plant my field? Or what soil will I plant my field? Or another analogy would be, where am I going to root my tree into? My tree of wisdom. Because if you're here with me, you already have trees that you've cultivated. Your tree is your presence. It's all the experience, all the things that you have created in your life to be who you are. You are the tree. We are the tree, rooted in earth, connected to the divine, to light, strong in our center, knowing who we are, open in our hearts, connected underground to the other trees that stand stronger, always together. And we get to choose where we're tending our field, planting our field, bringing our wisdom, bringing our experience, bringing our heart to in this next phase. So it's kind of like when you move in physical location, you got to put your stuff in, you got to go to a new house and a new place. It takes time to get acclimated. And so that inquiry comes through, I learned that inquiry, at least one of those parts of this idea of planting my field through Pamela Eakins and the Tarot of the Spirit. And Pamela is an amazing teacher, also similar to Pele in her 80s, wonderful, beautiful soul. If you don't have the Tarot of the Spirit and you're interested in an oracle that is off the charts, the only tarot I have, it's amazing. Again, her name is Pamela Eakins. And so 20 years ago, this is when I started to learn about like my life as a field. It's like, oh, my life is like a field and I'm tending it and I'm growing it. This makes so much more sense about how to think about things. And there's trees and there's plants and there's vines. And that is how I created then from that wisdom teaching, how I created the whole feminine wisdom way and the whole process of prioritizing and the teamwork that I do and the strategic power pausing that I do, like we just did with the Spring Power Pause. If any of you missed that, you can go to springpowerpause.com. That is specifically for leaders, emerging and established leaders. And as I like to say, you're a leader if you decided you're a leader. It's not just about position, but leaders are people who guide and influence and support others and choose to live their lives as co-creators in my book. So this inquiry, I want you to kind of, write that down or kind of think of, sit in the now here for a moment. Okay, like you're the tree and your presence wherever you go goes wherever you are. This is why I like that teaching of like, if you don't deal with the stuff that's going on internally and you just think, oh, I'll go get another job or I'll get another relationship or I'll move to another city, you go with yourself because you're the tree. And then there are fields that we can plant ourselves into. So there's 3 fields that I want to bring to the forefront for you. And you'll like this because they all rhyme. And this is a model that I created that I use in Next Phase on Purpose and I use in my own life as well. So here they are. These are the fields that you want to be considering. Where do I want to root my tree in and where do I want to plant? Vocation, relation, and location. Vocation, relation, location. Vocation is your part. It's your career can fall into there. It's your bigger purpose. It is what you do and why you do it. It is how you give your gifts in the world. It is your part. And if you think of the field, you could be a therapist, say, and your part could be, if you work as a therapist, the field is the field of therapy. And that is where your tree's been planted, and you have a degree as a therapist, and that's your name badge, and that's how people see you. And I've had this happen with some of the people that I've worked with. They've been called to actually then be complete with seeing one-on-one clients as a MFT, marriage and family, therapist, counselor, that kind of thing. And they've been called to go into the realm of business. And they now work in different capacities. Sometimes they run the coaching and executive development function. Sometimes they are organizational design or organizational well-being people within the organization. So they took their tree, which is who they are, all of the training that they've had, and they took it out of the field of being a therapist in that field that is part of the medical system, and then they moved it into the system of business or organizations. Like could be in academia, some might be, but that's usually business or academia is where that is happening. That's an example of where I'm going to plant my field and where I'm going to root my tree. So all the same skills, all the things you've learned, but using it in a different field. It might also be like I had a friend who was a therapist and decided that she didn't want to work within the medical system anymore and have to take insurance. So she moved herself out of that insurance whole world thing and is tangential to that. So she is a independent free agent. And she has many modalities that she uses, and she will write things so that people can, she'll code it or whatever so that people can go to get their reimbursements, but she's not running the money through her. They pay her, they deal with the insurance. That was a conscious move to get her out of that matrix that was causing her to have like 25 clients a week, which is completely unsustainable. So like that's a real example of like choosing to like root your tree in a specific field And then, because then you're going to grow your field from there forward in this next cycle. And again, you might know the time of that cycle. Like for me, it's 20 years, because I'm like, I'm just going to stay here for 20 years. I've always kind of moved fields every 3.5 to 10 years. And I'm going to stay here for a while in the field that I'm in, which my part and my purpose is to, and I like to have a little fun and keep it light. So mine is to train like a Jedi, the established and emerging leaders of this new era, as well as harmonize the hearts of the humans and to bring the feminine back in to leadership and systems and the world. So I know that's where I've rooted my tree. And so I can take things, and we're going to get to this later, last piece here. You're going to decide what are you taking with you and what are you leaving? Because like you're getting on your raft, your tree, and you're like moving to the new field. So it's like moving. Some things you take, some things you don't. But first you want to be clear about that in your vocation. The second place is relation. Where do you want to plant your field? Where do you want to root your tree? Who do you want to be in relationship with? And this is not about individual people. This is about the frequency of the people you want to be in relationship with. If we make it about people, it gets way too personal. We talk a lot about vibration and frequency here because one of the principles we work on, again, here comes harmonized hearts. So what I'm doing with you right now is we're harmonizing your heart, because at a vocation level, it's like it is what you desire in your heart also desires you. Wisdom teaching. Relationship, same thing. Like if I have my hand on my heart right now, you can even do this yourself. Put your hand on your heart. Your relations, whether those are your close, intimate, what we call beloved relationships, the dear ones that are that circle of trust, and or they're your tribes and your colleagues and your relatives. We always like to say just because you're a relative doesn't mean that you get to come into the beloved relationships, because the people who are in your beloved relationships, they have to be safe, like they're your safe people, that they love you unconditionally, only love and respect, see the whole of you, and when shit gets hard, they lean in. That's how beloved relationships work. Animals are also 100% part of that. But then we have our tribes and our colleagues, and not tribe as in tribalism, like what's creating the banana reality right now of that. We can be part of different kinds of tribes, different collectives of people. Like who are the kinds of people, energy, not from a closed off separatist kind of way, but from an expansive vibrational kind of way. And then colleagues are like the co-creators, the people that you're in co-creation with, collaborators, different friend groups, right? We don't have to have only two friends. It's like different people do different things. So, when you feel into the field of your relations and the tree where you're planted and the kind of almost like the grove that your first grove you're connected to, and then out from there, who are those people? What are those fields? And again, you shouldn't be able to answer this like just, okay, I'm done. That was a nice podcast. Like I really do double dog, triple dog, dare you, invite you as a little catalyzing energy, another one of the feminine leadership archetypes, catalyst. Like really write these down and contemplate them and be with them and start to feel into like what feels resonant, what doesn't feel resonant. And this one relational is pretty challenging because oftentimes when we elevate, this is a wisdom teaching, when we elevate, our friends, our food, our fashion, and fun change, what those are. So as you make the choice of, I'm going to become something new, I'm saying yes to my imaginal selves coming online, I'm saying yes to the next elevation, the next evolution, you can, as Annie would say, bet your bottom dollar that your relationships around you are going to change. And that is hard because we quote unquote lose friends or we lose connection, which is actually not true. But it feels like a loss, and there is loss to it. I don't want to discount that. I certainly have had people who were in my soul family that I don't talk to anymore, and that was painful. It was part of my curriculum, and I've had to learn over time that this is why I have a whole technology called the love rings and relational rings. We're not going to talk about that today. But the basic principle is that your connection might shift, be less intimate, be less close, be less frequent. But the love doesn't die. Love doesn't die. You cannot kill love. It's not possible. You can distort it. You can spray yucky, shadowy stuff all over it so you can't even see it. But the love is still there. So you may need to move some people out on your relationship rings so you can make room for the communities and the individuals to show up. And so considering that, like for me in my relational field, I'm very clear that I only desire, I desire to be in co-creative, co-generative relationships. And so that co-generative piece is very important to me because I can have a dynamic that shows up in my shadow frequency where I'm pursuing and chasing people. Not like in a weirdo stalking kind of way, but like we've created a connection, it's very close, and the other person, like they're there and then they go, and they're there and then they go. And that whole like I'm there and then I go thing is really hard for me, and it's actually a shadow pattern that continues to create and recapitulate the wounding of abandonment. And I'm not interested in that. And that doesn't mean I need to be like at the hip with the person or be Siamese twins with them, but I need that other person to also show up and not just disappear. And that's really important to me. And I also, it's really like for me, I don't do superficiality well. I need to be around people who are creative and are embracing their power to create and are not just focused on themselves, but are really get that they're a part of the bigger world and that they want to contribute in a meaningful way. That really matters to me. That's not where I grew up at, and I had to get out of there for sure. And there has to be some contribution to the world. Even my mother, she makes quilts for the veterans of America, and they make quilts together, and she's like the newsletter person and whatever. She's contributing. It doesn't have to be in a specific way. But it's really pretty much impossible for me to be in relationship with people. And that just means that they're not contributing in some way. And I'm okay with that. Admit what you really want. And that doesn't mean judging the other people. It just means we're not simpatico. But the love can still be there. So you can be loving with a sibling, a parent, a former friend, and choose. I'm not gonna destroy the love. But based on where I'm putting my tree at, I need these other kinds of people around me so that I can grow and I can thrive. Now, don't tell them that you're doing this. You don't need to do that. You need to have some big conversation. It's just about allowing it to happen naturally. And then the last one is location. Take a breath. Not everyone on the planet always gets to live where we want to live. If that was the case, I'd still be on the West Coast. But I got really clear about the essence of what I needed in my location. So this is not, when I say location, it's not about, I want to live here, like in this city or this town or this kind of house. I want you to feel into the essence of what location is and what you want to settle, like where you settle into, what needs to be true for you about the location. Like, so for me, it needed to be green. It needed to have creativity, fresh air, access to really healthy food, and an essence of creativity that was happening that I didn't have to bring, that I could plug into that. And my location at the center of it needs to support the longevity of my well-being. And that's what I said to the universe and myself, to my soul, when I lived on the West Coast, and now I live in Asheville. And when I lived in California, I said for location, I need to live where I can write instead of having to like go someplace and come back home. I have to live there to write Overwhelmed and Over It. And within 8 months, I was living on Bainbridge Island off the coast of Seattle. Most beautiful place, but I did not want to leave California. So there is this piece when we start working with essence, you all, and we start working in co-creation, there are changes that happen that you're like, well, I didn't want that. I didn't ask for that. But you did. And this is where the allowing and the co-creation comes into. And it's fun. I actually, in my journal, I wrote down, I drew out, what does home, what has to be true about location for me, and all of these things. And I put that in my journals. This is one of the reasons in the co-creation process that we do every year, where we're working with the turns of the cycles and the moon cycles. We're actively co-creating this. So I have a page in my journal that literally has a circle, location, and it says longevity of my well-being. And part of that is place, and also part of that is relationships. So what is that for you? What do you know about the essence of the place? And then, that's how you start. Versus well, I just want to stay in this location, or I want to live in this place. And the other thing I'll just say about location, the other thing I knew was that I needed to think about home in location is it's not just if you have other places and spaces that you need to be in, but maybe are not going to support you in what's at the center of location, then it's like having a mycelium network where you design how that works. So for me, I have a part of my design of longevity of my well-being is I go back to the West Coast. My deal with the universe is at least 2 to 3 times a year for an extended period of time. And I do that. That's happened ever since I've moved. And so that's just part of the way I work, and that keeps me healthy and supports my well-being. But living there right now would not support the longevity of my well-being. And I know that in my bones because I know the essence. And that's why we want to get to essence here. All right, last one. So you've admitted what you really want. You are contemplating where you want to plant your field and root your tree, vocation, relation, location. And of course, your well-being is wrapped in all of that. The last place is to take a look around where you are right now. And this is the frame I'm going to give you, because it all can't come with you, right? We've already talked about that. And there are things that don't totally exist yet that need to be created. And there are also things that you could shapeshift a little bit. You could keep them as they is. You could even redesign them, and they're still good. They're still viable. So it's like transplanting a plant, right? That's not just a sprout, but say it's a seed packet that you want to bring with you that you maybe haven't planted those yet, or it's a plant like my Shasta daisies out in my garden that keeps coming back that are in a pot. I could just bring that with me. But when I couldn't bring my lemon tree with me when I left the West Coast because she couldn't survive here in North Carolina. So this is the frame. You ready? Okay. As I look forward into this next cycle about what can come and what's not coming and what's needed, number one, what needs to be released? What do I need to release, let go, because it's just not meant to come with? And that could be everything from relations to habits, to projects, to things that you've created in the past, programs, roles that you've taken on in your family system or a work system. Lots of things for releasing. You just can't bring them with you. Ways of thinking, seeing the world, beliefs. 2, preserve. What can I preserve? Or what's wanting to be preserved that could be redesigned, replanted, or just left as it is, like it's good, like there's no need to change it. And again, same thing, looking at it in terms of relations and vocation and your own presence and your beliefs like that. These are good. Let's preserve these. Very important to preserve. We live in a throwaway culture, so let's not throw away. Let's change that by not just throwing away things. This is how this whole retirement craziness comes into place. And people, in their 60s, especially women, are like, oh, no one wants to hire me anymore. No one wants to hire me anymore because we think, oh, there's no value if you're not young. So much value and experience and wisdom, and truly healthy cultures know that. So let's imagine and create that together. And that's the last one. Speaking of create, what are the things that you know in this next cycle that you desire to create that aren't in your garden? but you want to leave space for them, right? So some people, they don't leave space in their garden. They bring too much stuff with them, and there's no space to bring new things in, like moving. People they get big trucks and they move everything with them, but then there's no space for anything new, which you can't know about, right? And then some people make their gardens too small. I'm just going to be safe here in my little garden, and just so that I'm okay and I'm safe. Don't give me too much because I might not be able to handle it. That's you. You open up your garden. Your co-creation. You're not in charge of making it grow. That's the rain and the sun and the moon and all of those things. That's your relationship with the earth and with the sky and nature and spirit. So getting real, looking at your field, because we want to simplify and strengthen. 3 things. What do I need to release? What's calling to be released? What can I preserve? It could be redesigned or realigned or re-resonated. And what's wanting space to create the new for? And that's it, my friends. That is the becoming something new. Those are 3 inquiries to play around with, to contemplate. I wanted to, as I was tuning into why I chose to do this series, is I really believe that if that's part of my job, it's part of what I just told you about. But I believe with all my heart that the coding is within us, and that we are transmuting, alchemizing patterns that have kept humanity in lockstep into this matrix for far too long. And when I was writing Overwhelmed and Over It, and I was doing my research on burnout and overwhelm and self-sacrifice, and asked that question, what the heck? Like, why, as in this case, women, have we not been able to break out of these systems that no matter how hard we work to find work-life balance, no matter how hard we work to feel successful, like it doesn't really shift. We just get pushed right back. Even looking at like what's happened after COVID, it's a great example. And then people proving you can actually work from home. And then hybrid, totally fine, totally normal. But this like piece of like you have to be back in the office 4 or 5 days, like why? Really, why, right? So that's the old system trying to push you back in to a way that doesn't actually support healthy living. But the piece was that I found in my research was that, a big part of it was the Industrial Revolution that created this whole more, the Gilded Age, the whole freaking thing. I don't know if we could have done it differently to get to this place in society. I don't know if you and I individually could do it differently, right? This is where the macro and the micro works. It's like there's no use of looking back at any things that you've done that either you or I have done that's like, that was a mistake. It's like, oh, I shouldn't have short sold my house for me. Oh, I shouldn't have done this. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. That's not helpful. Helpful to look at it, maybe if you haven't, and really look at what drove me to make that decision, which obviously probably came from a wound or some kind of something that wasn't clear and pure at the beginning. But of course, dear one, of course, because that's how, just like we talked with Pele, like we came here, we're spirits having a physical experience. And as we transmute these shadow patterns into a sustainable frequency that operates on love, compassion, sustainability, really wholeness, the whole culture rises. That is why we do not want to be dreamt. We want to be actively dreaming our dream, which requires some patience, purposeful patience, requires intention, it requires co-creation for sure, and it requires us having spaces outside of our day-to-day. You can count on me for that, to share this wisdom in these spaces outside of the day-to-day. How that looks is I'm still in co-creation. I have seeds I've been wanting to sprout for years that it's not been time for, and is becoming time. So, as I've mentioned, we're recommitting to another season. Its shape is still finding itself, so stay tuned on that. There's actually some other things that are going to be popping up in the field of leadership and really embracing our capacity to make systemic change and there's so much good stuff going on out there in the world. And I'm very committed to that too. So I will reveal as we go. But this Feminine Power Time, going on year 10, we will be here for you. So keep coming back please, because I see how many people watch the episodes or tune in. And if I don't see the numbers, then I'm like, well, maybe no one cares. maybe there's so many podcasts right now that this really isn't relevant. And if that's the case, I'd be happy to let Feminine Power Time just be what it has been in the library. But if I know you're out there listening, if I see people that are posting reviews and giving that love, and also share this with a friend, it's the best way to do it. Is then you can all be in conversation. Like, take these inquiries and conversate on them. You and I might not be able to have that individual conversation. Maybe we will someday. That would be amazing too. I'd be totally up for that. And do it right now. Share this with a friend, and then talk about these things, and then reflect for each other with your own intuition, your own inner knowing. Because when we hear someone reflect to ourselves what we know within, it gets into our brain and our body in a way it can't when we're only in our own reality. And that is why the Hopi elders said, this could be a good time. Gather yourselves. So thank you for sharing this. Thank you for showing up. If you can leave a review, that would help. You just go to the show episode and just scroll down, and it's right there, stars and little words. And come back. And we'll be back again for this next episode and the next phase on purpose. All right, becoming something new. Here we go. Wings of light, my friends. Wings of light.